Hey, what up, guys? This is Asian What If back again with another video, and you guys are probably wondering what's going on. Like, whoa, I didn't know he did this, but yeah, I really saw that you guys liked this, and this video was doing really well, so I thought I'd hit y'all up with a part two. So real quick, it's whatever. But also just a few announcements. For all the people who were wondering about like the order of the videos, I'm gonna be making playlists for all of the series. So yeah, don't worry about that. You guys will know that because I know I definitely hate it when I'm watching another YouTuber, and they don't number their videos. So I'm like, where do I start? I understand. So without any further ado, I'll just get into the video. We start off with Izuku actually being around Todoroki, right? Todoroki, even as a child, could understand what was about to happen to him. Like, before, Izuku intervened, his mother was essentially about to dump a pot of boiling water onto her son, right? Izuku, knowing this, saved him. If you're just watching this episode, definitely go check out the last episode. But for those who are a little bit too lazy, essentially, Izuku is not forgotten, but abandoned child of Endeavor, and he just came to Endeavor's house, right? And he saved Todoroki from getting that burn on his face that he typically has. Okay, so you're caught up, great. Anyway, Izuku and Todoroki start hanging out a lot more because Todoroki really respects Izuku, and he really, like, almost, well, no, it is a brotherly bond because he saved him essentially. So he looks up to Izuku and stuff like that, right? Izuku is young, but he is probably the strongest person there aside from, not Todoroki, aside from their mother, like the Todoroki family mom. I forget her name, and Endeavor, right? Because he's not stronger than her, but he's pretty strong on his own, right? So Endeavor, like, noticing this, like, after he gets over the initial shock, and it's been about a week since he's there, he's like, okay. And, he goes up and he grabs Izuku and Todoroki, right? And he's like, okay, you guys will train. And Izuku's like, why would I train? And Todoroki at this point is acting like Izuku and, trying to be like him. So he says, why would I train? And he says, because you need to become strong, and because you will one day surpass All Might, but in order to do that, you must put in the work. Izuku's not opposed to the idea of training. It's just that he likes to mess with it with, Endeavor, like pick fights almost whenever he can, because he still hasn't quite got over the fact of, like, his birth. So he's kind of still angry with him, but, like, not to a serious extent. So, and Izuku then just, like, caves in and says, okay, whatever, man. And he's like, sure, I'll train. And he says, you two will train together, and, you'll train until you're ready to go to school. Like, not school. Until you're ready to go to UA, right? Because all of your other education will be handled here. You'll be the perfect people, essentially. So, like, all you need to do is focus on training and stuff, because you won't be going to school, you'll be homeschooled or whatever. So, Endeavor begins, and he says, like, Todoroki, do you know how to use, like, well, he calls him Shoto, and he's like, Shoto, what do you know how to use your abilities? And Shoto kind of does, like, not to a great extent, but he knows enough, right? He knows enough to know, like, how to activate his quirk, but he's not really sure about much else, So Todoroki is then like, yeah, he just says yeah, and then he's like, Endeavor's like, okay, well, show me an example of your power. And Shoto does it, right? He does it, but he's kind of a lot, like, slower. It's pretty slow, it's not a lot, and he's pretty weak. Izuku then showcases his power, and Izuku already knows how to use his fire, and for the most part, fire is his simpler power. His real complicated power is his portals and how to use them effectively. So Izuku then offers to say, hey, Endeavor, right? Because he doesn't call him Dad, he just calls him Endeavor. He's like, Endeavor, and it's like, why do you call me by my hero name? And he's like, I don't know, I'm just gonna call you that from now on. it doesn't feel right to call you by your first name, and it doesn't feel right to call you dad, so that's what I'm gonna call you. And Endeavor just gives up because he's like, that's fair, right? That's fair. So he's like, I'll train him because we have similar quirks, and also we're the same age and you're an adult, right? It might be hard for him to understand the concepts you're trying to force upon him. And then Endeavor just thinks to himself, he's gonna have a hard time understanding me when a 4-year old like yourself talks like that. As far as I'm concerned, you two aren't even the same age. And anyway, Izuku just goes over to Todoroki, and he takes him on the shoulder, right? He's like, okay, think of it like this. Think of fire, right? You know what fire is, right? And Todoroki shakes his head, and Izuku says, okay, now imagine that all the blood in your veins is fire. Don't think about it too hard. Just stay with me. Think of the concept. Now, think of all of that rushing to the palm of your hand and exploding violently, right? But don't do it yet. And then he grabs his arm and puts one arm out, and he tells Todoroki to close his eyes. He does, and he says, "Now concentrate on something coming out of your hand violently." And he's like, "Okay." And it takes him a while, about 10 minutes, but finally, a spark erupts into a massive flame, right? And he's like, "Good. Remember that feeling, because that's gonna be how you activate both of your quirks." Except your ice is a little bit different, but I can't really help you too much there. But it should be the same concept, because all quirks work the same, at least on that base level. And Endeavor, is shocked because Todoroki wasn't really good with using his quirk. So yeah, and essentially we just do a almost massive time skip to when they're 15 years old, right? They're 15 years old, and we see them training, right? They're training outside, and Izuku asks Shoto, if he's ready to go all out. Shoto says yes, and Izuku then starts burning. Essentially, his power starts erupting, his fire. Todoroki's does the same thing, and Todoroki in this in universe uses his powers, his both of them, his ice and his fire. So he starts off by stepping against the ground, and a giant spike of ice erupts, right? Almost enough to touch the house, but Izuku burns it to nothingness immediately, right? Todoroki starts trying to send out ice shards, at Izuku. Izuku uses portal and puts one portal in front of him and the other portal above Todoroki, and the ice shards come raining down over him. Todoroki ducks, he rolls to the side. Izuku actually took this time to jump into one of his portals and come out right beside Todoroki and punch him in the face with a flaming fist, which sends him tumbling. But Todoroki recovers, and he uses his ice to make a big shield, which Izuku then starts promptly destroying with ease, breaking it apart. And Izuku tries to get in close, but Todoroki uses fire to propel himself away and starts shooting ice shards at him again. Izuku keeps on blocking it with his portals, and he says, "Come on, Todoroki, I know you can do better than this." And Todoroki lands at the ground and then starts using his fire to propel himself forward, and Izuku says he took the bait. And he tries to go for an uppercut, and Izuku dodges and punches him in the side with a flaming fist. And then that sends Todoroki stumbling back. Izuku jumps back, and then Todoroki asks him what does he think he's doing. He doesn't have any long range attacks, so why is he running away? And then Todoroki, says, "Isn't that the whole reason you taunted me into coming in close, because that's your specialty?" Izuku says, "You didn't know this, but I've been developing something." And Todoroki looks confused, and that's when Izuku opens a portal, and he's like, "See, Izuku, you really don't know how your power works, huh? You need something to go in so it can come out the other way." And Izuku says, "Exactly." And the portal shrinks, And another one appears right in front of Todoroki, but he doesn't move because he's like, there's nothing to go in there. Izuku, what do you expect to? And before he can even finish, he gets punched in the jaw, right? And Izuku then punches him again. And Izuku then says, you finally realized it, but it's too late. It's already over. And a whole bunch of portals start appearing all around Todoroki. And Izuku starts going ham, right? Like from 50 feet away, just starts pummeling him from every possible angle. And Todoroki cannot run at all because the way his portals work is all of the portals can mimic each other if Izuku wants them to. So essentially, his fist is going through multiple portals when it goes to connect to Todoroki. So think of it as a tunnel, and each tunnel has a ring, and he goes through all of these rings to hit Todoroki. So he's essentially using multiple portals, so they're all hitting him at the same time. So he's getting hit from every angle at the same time, and Izuku's using his fists while they're on fire, and he's just pummeling Todoroki into the dirt. Todoroki tries to attack him by using his ice. Izuku puts a big portal which actually takes all of the ice, and absorbs it. Izuku closes the portal, and his portals are following him while he runs up to Todoroki, and he's still beating him down. And that's when he slides underneath Todoroki's legs. He jumps up, kicks him in the head, which sends him hitting the ground. And Izuku is about to punch him, but stops and says, "Do you give up?" And Todoroki then regrettingly taps on the ground. And Izuku says, "You did better than I expected you to." And Todoroki says, "You realize that's not a compliment, right?" And Izuku says, "It is for me." And Endeavor comes out of the house watching the entire fight, and he says, "Izuku, you've learned a new way to utilize your power. Impressive." And and then he says, "Todoroki and Roshoto, you also used your powers more effectively for movement purposes. I have thought of that myself, but for you to come up with it so quickly, it took me a while before I even realized there was a possibility." And Izuku mumbles to himself, "That's just because you're dumb." And and Endeavor hears this, and he says, "Izuku, are you ever gonna forgive me?" And Izuku then says, "Maybe, but probably not likely." He continues to walk, and he signals for Todoroki to come follow him, but then before the door closes, Izuku comes back out and he says, "Wait, did we already apply for UA? Did you do that for us already?" And Endeavor then says, "Apply? Izuku, you must not know who your father is. Of course you're already in. You don't even need to take the test. You know who I am. I'm the number 2 hero." Izuku says, "Okay, I'm gonna take the test anyway." And Endeavor then says, "But why?" And Izuku then just plainly says, "To be spiteful." And Endeavor says, "Spiteful to who?" And he says, "Who other than you?" And Endeavor sighs and says, "Can you at least tell Todoroki to not take the test?" And Izuku then says, "That's not my decision." And he says, "But can you at least influence him?" And he says, "Again, not my decision. Bye." And walks away. Endeavor groans, slamming his palm into his face and saying, "That boy." We skip the 10 months because there's nothing really important to happen because Izuku's powerful and Todoroki's more powerful. They just are because they've been training. They're a lot more powerful than most everyone at UA. They're probably around just short of the power level of the big 3. They're not quite on par, but they're in the same ballpark. And it comes the day of the exams. Izuku blasts through all of the other exams because they're not really challenging. Todoroki does the same, and they both finish the exam incredibly quick, right? They just written exam about within 5 minutes of it starting, they're instantly finished, and everyone is surprised and really shocked. And all of the girls are swooning and stuff, and Izuku really doesn't care. So Todoroki doesn't care either. And that's when, Ida finishes his test, and Ida walks up to Izuku and says, "You finished your test incredibly fast. I hope you didn't do anything that would be like cheating. And Izuku then says, "Why would I cheat?" And before he could even finish talking, you know, Todoroki says, "How dare you assume that my brother cheated? You're probably just ashamed that you're third place. That's what all losers do. They always get sore because they lost. So maybe you should stop maybe you should stop being so salty and just get better. Come on, Izuku. We don't have time for this low-grade peasant." And Izuku then laughs to himself and walks away. And the reason Todoroki shot back like this and so hard is because he feels like he's required to protect Izuku, even though Izuku's stronger than him, because he wants to repay back the debt that Izuku did when he was younger, saving him from getting that scar and that injury from his mother. So he feels like he owes Izuku, and he wants to protect him. And Izuku even tells him multiple times that he doesn't have to do this, and it was just because he was doing the right thing. It isn't, he doesn't owe him anything, but he still feels this way. Then we get to the practical exam. The practical exam begins, and Izuku immediately uses portals to get ahead of most people, and just destroys, and I mean destroys, all of the robots as quickly as possible. He actually teleports up onto a building and then just starts using his portals to attack them from far away, destroying them with one punch, destroying all of the robots. Endeavor has a smirk on his face because he's like, "Of course my sons will dominate. Who do these people think they are? They are the sons of this. They are the sons of the number 2 hero. Of course they're gonna destroy all of these low grade children." And everyone notices the smirk on Endeavor's face. And then that's when Aizawa asks him. He's like, "Hey, I didn't know you had another son." And Endeavor actually gets shocked out of his grin, and he says, "He's always been my son. He's my third oldest, and I just I never showed anybody him because he's been off with his mother. He's from a marriage before I got with my current wife, right?" Because Zuko does look a bit older. He's not actually older, but he looks a bit older, and because just the way he dresses and the way he talks and stuff, so people assume that he's older than Todoroki, even though he's actually not. But Aizawa believes this for the most part, and just doesn't bother him again. Todoroki just starts freezing every robot he sees while sliding across the battlefield and destroying all the robots by melting them to pieces. When the 0-pointer comes, Izuku is not at all interested in doing anything with it because he sees it as pointless and not worth the time and effort that it would take to defeat it. After Todoroki finishes getting his points, he actually uses his ice to climb up the building and sit next to Izuku, and Izuku then says, "So, you got up here. You finished a lot quicker than I thought." And Todoroki then says again, "You realize that's not a compliment." And Izuku says again, "It is for me." And Todoroki then says, "Hey, is that girl gonna get stepped on by the robot?" And Izuku says, "No, they won't. They won't let her die. At best, she might have broken bones." And Izuku then says, "But to be safe," he uses his teleportation and he brings her up to where he is. And then the 0-pointer robot stops. And Izuku says, "See, they probably weren't going to let her get destroyed. Probably." And Ochako, hearing this, gets shivers. And Izuku says, No. I mean, they weren't going to let you die at all. It wasn't even close." And they go back down to the beginning. And, Recovery Girl is there to treat Ochako's wounds. And Izuku's not interested in Ochako at all. He just walks away. So does Todoroki. And everyone in the observation booth is like, so no one attacked the 0-pointer? I was expecting someone to do it. Kind of disappointing. And Endeavor walks off to go congratulate his children. He does. And Todoroki says, thanks, I guess." Izuku then says, "What did you expect? I am the son of the number 2 hero," mocking Endeavor. He laughs and then walks off. Endeavor kind of feels, he wants to laugh too because it's pretty funny, but, he doesn't. And I think with that, I'm going to end this episode. If you guys want another episode, then just make this one as popular as the first. Peace.